Right.
Okay, so go ahead and
We're
start
on.
us up.
We're on.
And
Is Brink still attending from the moon today?
from what I understand, he is.
Oh, he is.
So if you just see which, and also I thought it was worth mentioning that I told Eamon just to make sure he's looking at his window chat for anybody that attends a meeting who's in the waiting room. In case there's a citizen to be heard, that we need to ask that question at that time whenever we do the agenda for citizens to be heard, in case there is a citizen that wants to be heard.
Travis, you gonna be here?
From what I understand,
As far as I know.
We're still, by my watch, it's still got about 5 minutes. I don't know. It's
Yeah, we're still.
Yeah, no, Travis will not be here about 5 seconds before. He's just in
Minutes,
time
time,
for arrival. Yeah.
I'm gonna let Travis sit here and I'm gonna sit over there. Does everybody else have a copy of their stuff?
And Anna is attending by Zoom today.
That Donna, I don't have a copy. Let me make
What do
a
you not
copy.
have? What do you need?
I don't have a copy of the,
Anything?
yeah.
Well, I brought my copy, so you can have these.
Oh, you have a copy of it?
Here,
I
I
got extra
brought,
this.
she emailed them to us and I put it in this morning.
Excellent.
So I brought mine.
Does that have the budget and everything?
So is Anna excited about all this?
No,
I didn't know, I forgot that Beth was coming.
We
so I
did,
didn't have extra copy.
all last week, I think it's the same week that we did the last budget meeting here. She was listening. And then since then, we've had two webinars on Senate Bill 2 that changes everything in our tax rate calculation.
So low.
She was kind of catatonic at the end of the second one.
What is this screen? Oh, that's just the
What have I
participants?
done?
This is the, I'm waiting to see if anyone's
I
gonna
said,
show
So
that's
that's
normal
this
feeling.
camera
That's
plus
normal feeling.
up. Basically, no one's here.
Oh,
What if
you
we wanna
make it
show-
in that case, it ran-
Well, we don't have to show, we can just, I can testify that nobody else is there.
We're not
I
on
mean, we
yet.
can just
I
go
know,
with that.
but you just never know who pulls the switch. Do you remember a FedEx commercial some years ago, and I'll have to shorten it and paraphrase it, but guy's on the phone and he's talking with his boss and it reads something like this: New York on Thursday, Chicago, or New York on Monday, Chicago on Tuesday, LA on Wednesday. And with each time he says, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. And hangs up and says, how am I gonna do that?
Yeah.
Is that how she feels?
Uh-huh.
Why don't you pull
And
that
then
over?
she said, maybe it will help
Let's see if she's gonna.
that she's learning the new way, hands-on. I mean, she's attended classes on the old way, but she hasn't actually done it. So she can just move forth. And I said, yeah, they always say that's easier to
Are we-
learn.
Are we rocking right now?
So,
Okay. So just before, I mean, I know the meeting starts at 2:30, but we're rocking. We do have Anna Marshall. She's not videoed in, but she's listening, I believe.
yes.
So that's, you can see right here who we have that's on the list. We have Anna, we have the district, which is this computer, and we have this camera, which is this iPad right here. So there's no other zoomed in things at this point.
If I sit right here, nobody can see me because he's covered.
Hey, Beth, I've already cleaned that monitor, like that temperature taker. So when Travis comes in, just if he comes in here or here, just take his temperature, record it real quick. And so
Do we have a quorum?
we do.
Okay.
It is
I think I-
2:30. On the clock on the wall, I note the presence of a quorum. Let's bring this to order. I think Mr. McDavid will be along shortly. Item 2, consideration and action on the minutes of May 27th. We have the minutes here. Has everybody read them? Any
I move approval.
I second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion of the minutes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Now let me sign these things and give them to Donna. So I don't get in trouble.
Oh, there's Brink.
Here's
If you'll Brink, if you'll just stand right there, Beth's gonna take your temperature real quick.
Oh, good.
Move your hat just a little bit.
And I was told to give you a message that Travis is on his way.
Okay. If you'll just have a seat right over there.
Okay.
I
Okay, moving on to item 3, citizens to be heard. I see none in the room. Are there any citizens remotely out in the lobby? I'll take that.
I'm
as a
sorry, no, I zoned out.
Um,
No, they're not.
Put Travis over here, kind of in the center.
Just, yeah, put him right in the middle there.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what you get for being last.
Here's his pad and stuff. Mike.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to item 4. Consideration and possible action on the proposed 2021 budget. Okay, Michael.
Yes,
You're at bat.
as you'll remember, last time we asked questions about the 2021 proposed budget. And we submitted these two, or we reviewed these two documents. I have a obligation to submit these documents to the taxing units prior to June 14th of every year. And the reason that we have consideration and action is in case this board wanted to point out any line item that we haven't already talked about. Otherwise, I'm going to submit these documents to the taxing units.
Okay, well, we had a pretty fulsome discussion of this budget last time. Bottom line, it's up 5.15% over last year. There are some specific areas in here that we've talked about, and I guess go down the list if you want to, or let anybody bring up questions or refresh their memory about the reasons for the increases and decreases in certain areas.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that has nothing to do with the budget other than in months going forward, I would like to see us add the column to show where we are as a percentage of budget each time that we discuss budget. So we're looking at, because this district is different than the school board. I think it's different from a calendar perspective than the county and the city too, or is that not accurate?
No, I think they'll run your budget on the calendar year, which is the county also.
Okay.
Yeah,
You're looking for our year-to-date
yeah,
2020.
and we,
Yes.
and thank you for that. I do want to say that last meeting we did present financials. It was less than 10 days ago. So essentially nothing's changed since the last financials, and we had the latest information year to date, and it would have been year to date of 2020.
Yes.
So during the next meeting, you can expect the financials, and I'll have the number of months divided by 12 represented as a percentage, and then you'll be able to compare that to the line item percentage just to kind of have a marker.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
And you're going to promise to have them out 2, 3, 4 days?
The Weebelow's honor, the Weebelow's honor, there's two, if anybody can see that.
That would be helpful.
I was not a Boy Scout, I was a Weebelow.
And then when everybody comes in, you can ask them a penetrating question about, have you thoroughly reviewed it?
That's right. I'm gonna ask Larry if he wants to see it on the pad.
Give me
If
quiz.
he wants to see it on the fire pad.
Yeah. I want to use my iPad.
That's right.
I did not see anything in here that directly after the discussions last meeting caused me any heartburn. Frank, you got a good eye on these things.
And if you remember the,
It looks routine and normal to me. I guess my only reaction is, the percent increase year to year is higher than I would have expected, but as you look at the line items of the increases, that explains them very well.
the only other thing I would say is just procedurally, if you'll remember, this is disseminated to the taxing units. They get the 30 days to review them. And then this board will actually adopt this budget at some point. I think we always do it in August, Jerry. And then we have to give the taxing units 10 days notice of that hearing. It's a hearing and a meeting tied into one. That's the 10-day window.
We had to adopt this, propose this budget by tomorrow, right? And then notices go out to the entities after that, correct?
There's no, all you're doing is accepting my submission. That's all you do is accept the submission. I've already got the letters prepared.
Or, I mean, do they go out after this meeting?
They'll go out right after this meeting.
And they have until August at that point?
They'll have until August to look at those, and then
Right, and then they know of that next meeting, and then after that meeting,
we'll
it's
just,
adopted, right?
it's adopted, yeah, because,
Okay. So
because-
nothing happens after the August meeting,
no,
no window there.
no,
Okay.
it's just 10 days before the August meeting is when we have to give them notice of that hearing adopting the budget.
Okay.
But this board will adopt the budget at that time in
Okay.
August. This is just a proposal.
Really big items related to the increase are kind of starting from the bottom here, evaluation services. We talked about the reason for that. You're bringing on an ag person for about $6,500 a year. And then there was another,
The other increases were tied to the TREP and CoStar
That's
commercial services, the
Okay.
subscription services.
got it. And board review expense went way up, but that's because we're gonna come into line with $100 per diem. Is that the?
Well, it's $100. They get paid 100. They will go up to $100 from 75 to $100 a
Yes.
day. So if they do a half day worth of ARB meetings, they'll go to 50. And if they did a full day, they'd go to 100. That's more in line with, that was actually asked for by some of my ARB members.
Okay, one thing I did notice looking at it before lunch, what caused you to assume that the IT replacement and the utility costs are both going to go down?
The IT replacement, remember, we had saved in the previous years for the server purchase, which we actually did in late December of 19. And so that was purchased. Those servers are probably good for 5 or 6 years. So in 5 or 6 years from now, you'll see another big spike in
That's
a
a timing issue.
yeah, it's just the timing in which we'll actually purchase more IT services or IT replacement. The $7,107 was an estimate that was given to me and Jerry by the Datto services people at that time. And that's for the data backup that's handled in Austin, I believe, is the location of that. What was the other thing that went down?
Utilities, that's not very much, but I don't know when I've ever seen utilities go down.
Yeah, it's just based on our actuals. I mean, what we've seen. So we just try to give the estimation based on what we're actually seeing. Hey, Trav.
Does he make you all work with the air conditioner?
Yeah, just right there. Sorry.
Curiosity, what happened to
Postage,
postage?
there's a requirement next year for the next year's cycle. It's a new Senate Bill 2 requirement for postcard. They're called postcards. And we have to give every buddy a postcard pointing to the area for which they can look at both the appraisal data information and the tax rates, I believe, proposed.
I don't know if it's proposed yet or just the calculated rate.
That's right.
So you can see how the no new tax rate versus your applied to the 2020 value.
No, it's just a mandated change.
It's a mandated,
Yes.
it's a mandated change. Now, you just need to know that because we're under 200,000 residents, we don't have to do it in 20, but we do have to do it by 21.
The
Okay,
larger counties are having to do it this year.
if there are no further questions, then I'll entertain a motion on accepting Mike's proposed budget.
The proposed budget.
Yeah.
I'll move. Second?
Okay, motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Done. Our work here is dismissed.
The,
Tried. I had help.
yeah, on the chief appraiser's report that you'll see the items under there, since we just had a meeting, I don't have any new information for your supplemental appraisal roll presentation. I made a comment that since the meeting just took place less than 10 days ago, there's no substantial change to the financials than what was presented at the last meeting. The map review, I will let you know that the data collection from the comptroller for the map review just took place. She's gathering all of her documents. She has not tabulated our results as of yet. And you'll remember that the map review is what's called methods and procedures test that's done by the comptroller. They look at minutes, they look at financials, they look at how we appraise, they look at reappraisal plans, they look at whether we have our utility bill posted on our website. They look at a myriad of things. Whenever we get those results back, I will report them to you, whether it's an exceeds, meets, or deficient area.
Did they send someone in, or did y'all have to do it all electronically?
It was virtual. Yeah, we sent all the documents. So we kind of listed them by question. You'll note that since we had a COVID, we had what's called a limited scope map review. It was actually interesting because the whole thought for a limited scope map review, you'll remember that law was recently written, and it was written for our specific our county was a county that was looked at to say, hey, we couldn't do it if we didn't have a building or if you didn't have a staff. And it had a period of time. It actually ended up being that the declared disaster. The very first test was actually COVID, and it happened for a number of districts across the state. They had what's called limited scope map reviews. And so in conjunction with that, the map appraiser or the comptroller's representative did all of her study online. So she would say, I need these documents, and we would electronically email them over or put them through a secure website, an FTP site or something like that. So like I said, she's gathered all of her documents, and she will present the deficiencies. And anywhere that she presents a deficiency, it's an opportunity for us to just get better. That's the way I look at it. So if she says, hey, you need to post this way, or you need to make sure that you send this to the comptroller timely, or you need to do whatever it is, it's just an opportunity for us to do things better. So that's the way I look at it. It's not anything other than that. The other thing that I have is the report on the appeal season. Now, you'll remember that the PVS 2019, there's two school districts. The Aransas Pass ISD, we were able to appeal and prevail, which means that we were inside the confidence interval. So we did option number 1, in which we actually agreed with the comptroller on the second review. And this is all done electronically. And we were actually able to pass Aransas Pass ISD. The one that's still under appeal is the Aransas County ISD. And we have until the 14th, which is in a few days, to actually select option number 2. What that will then generate is a date in which they will invite us, and I don't know if this will be virtual or not, but they will invite us to the appeals to actually talk about every category, the ratio study. And I think I mentioned this before, but I think our latest calculation, Eamon, was 93.4 or 6. And we have to be within a confidence interval of 95 or better. So we're only like a 1.5 off, or 1.6 or something like that. So if we get that and we prevail, it actually prevents, or if we did not prevail, they would actually study us again in this year in 20. But if we did not prevail, they would study us in 20. Some of the items that they actually brought up, and this is what we talked about last time, some of the items that they brought up in the PVS study were some blind spots that we had, specifically, category F, which is commercial property. Since the comptroller uses an income methodology, we changed an income methodology for some specific properties there. We have to react to that. Having said that, we think that we've made all the necessary adjustments, even if we did not prevail in 19 for the 19 appeal, that we would be successful in 20, because we've made the adjustments that, at least in our opinion, that we've made the adjustments that we believe that are necessary to come in line with the property value study and meet that confidence interval. So that's just a rough way of saying we're still in the appeal with the comptroller for 19.
I don't understand. You said on the 14th, you have the ability to choose option 2 before the 14th.
Yes.
Are
So
we still deciding what we're going to do, or?
No, I'm not deciding what we're going to do. It's just, I'm waiting until if there's any other piece of information, because along with just the option number 2, you're supposed to submit any other evidence that you might have. And so I'm waiting for these last few days in hopes that I get maybe a commercial appraisal. Because we're in the appeal season for 20 right now, we might get a document that says, hey, I just bought this shopping center, which I'm just going to tell you without divulging, because this board cannot have an opinion about value of any specific property. But I will tell you, in the appeal season, this is when we're trying to get information. There is a shopping center that recently sold, I mean, within the property value study period, that we did not have that data point. And guess what? We'd love to have that data point, because we'd love to be able to say, this is what it is. And cost is relevant to a degree. Income is relevant to a degree. The income approach is relevant, and so is the cost approach. And so we'd like to be able to point out some things. And so that's the only reason I haven't signed it.
That makes sense. Okay.
Do you still not have it?
No, I don't have it.
Would you like to have it?
Yes, I would like to have it from the property owner.
Is it permittable for me to ask the property seller?
I don't know. I guess I'd pump the brakes on receiving it from anybody other than the property owner,
The one that bought it?
the one that bought it.
I don't know the one that bought it, but I think I know the person
No.
that sold it.
It's okay for us to get it from like any person, but because he's on the board, I don't know.
That's why I said I'd rather just have the interaction with the property owner to try to get it that way.
So if I had a conversation with somebody and said, this information would be nice to have, would you give Michael Soto a call? That wouldn't be.
I don't know that.
Yeah, I don't know that you should have that conversation with anybody.
Okay. That's-
I think in an abundance of caution to separate ourselves from the appraisal process, I mean, the board from the appraisal process,
that's why I asked rather than just go do it.
yeah.
We send them notices and they can call us. It'll work itself out.
No, you sent to both the seller and the purchaser?
Yes, we do. And we
I knew
did,
you did on real estate. I didn't know about commercial property.
but we do. Yes, we do.
And we'll be, they'll get.
Right, I understand that.
And you do know this coming year, we will be sending surveys for income as well. Like, hey, please tell us your income. Yes,
Come on, Jack.
yes, Jack. Not only is that probably going to be the reaction, but the fact that we have to prove to the comptroller that we've attempted to receive it, to build a local modifier for actuals comparative to market is relevant. It's just relevant. I mean, we have to show that we've attempted to do such.
Demonstrate due diligence. If my success.
I would love to have a notebook with comments that you.
Yes. Yes.
Every every appraiser, chief appraiser, commercial appraiser that I've ever spoken to about this says that if nobody is giving you their actuals, you're not even close to the value yet.
Yeah.
So we'll get something and it'll start to happen. But if they're not talking to us at all, that's actually kind of bad sign.
So that is my report. Again,
Question, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Make sure I understand this option thing on the 14th or whenever it is. Is that, you're gonna pass or fail on the 14th? Is that the,
no, sir. I have to tell them that I'm still appealing by the 14th.
okay.
And then they will set a date for which we will show up with all of our data or virtually do it. I don't know which is going to be that way. And
My
then
recollection is that even if you should not get within the 5% confidence limit this year, there's no penalty on the school board at this point.
that is correct.
Okay.
To my understanding, the only thing that's they will then again study us in 20, which is again, I'm not bemoaning my job. It's just another thing that I would have to do. Another study on top of a map review year. So it would be, we just completed a map review for which there'll probably be things that we have to remedy, for the map review. And then we'll have to go through another property value study. It'll be, and understand all of that timing is very lag intensive. So if they do a 2020 study, it's not going to even happen until we have, so on the 14th, by the 14th, I say, I'm still appealing, right? And then they set a meeting. Then at some point they will say, you still didn't pass. Let's say that that's the scenario. Well, Then they will decide to do the 2020 study. And I won't even get those results until probably January of 21. Is that when we got that stuff? I think we got
That
it
sounds about right.
about January of 21 for a 2020 study. And hopefully we would have passed
Yes.
in that if we didn't pass in 19. So that's the procedure. I'm just keeping you in the loop and keeping you informed.
Okay, thanks. Talk to us a little bit about the appeal season and how that's going.
Sure. The appeal season has started. We've started having formal protests. As of right now, we're telling individuals that out of an abundance of caution with COVID, that, you know, in exposing the ARB members, we're having both telephone hearings and Zoom meetings. To date, we've only had telephone meetings, so we've had what, 3 days, not full days, but 3 days worth of hearings, and we would have had 3 days worth of hearings, and we just worked through them. We've had telephone hearings before, and so it's not that big a deal. The affidavit is required on those, so they swear in that they're submitting the evidence true and correct, and rather than swearing in front of us, kind of thing. So other than that, it's going well. I will say that from a statistical point of view, I think I did a calculation yesterday based on the number of days that had transpired and compared it to last year. And if everything holds true, we'll actually be down probably 200 appeals from last year. So we had approximately 1,500 formal appeals last year. And if everything holds true, that'll be about 1,300. But what's interesting is you always get a spike at the beginning of the appeal season whenever you send out notices, and you get it at the end as well. There's a lull in the middle. And we have the appeals deadline is next Wednesday, which is June 17th.
That's the last day that anybody can, file an appeal.
That is correct.
Okay. Well, that'll be interesting to see. Are you getting any unusual vibrations out of the appeals that you've heard so far?
Actually, we're settling quite a number of the formal appeals that we have in our hand. In fact, two of our biggest agents, again, not divulging any particular property or anything, but two of our biggest agent represented sectors, the majority of those are being handled informally through settlement waivers or withdrawals. Yeah. So it's looking promising at this point.
Sounds pretty good.
And we've heard, I will say that I've heard, some definite consternation, and I take this with all seriousness, definite consternation from, some commercial property owners. And we did have, between last meeting and this meeting, I think we had the article in the paper. Mr. Probst came over and did a press release, based on what that income valuation model or cost, the income approach looked like. We also had Blake McDavid, and we also had Diane Probst from the chamber that came over, and they had questions as well. And they put together a release for the chamber relating to the income approach and commercial property specifically. The encouragement that I had in both is that if, please call us, please protest if you have a concern. Be ready to disseminate information about either expenses or rents or collection rates or whatever you have that's maybe different than the market. So you have actuals, which is what a person actually spends or actually collects as far as rents. And then you have market, what's normal in that sector. And if they're not willing to share, what they actually have, then we have to go with whatever market rents are. And the analogy would be this: we often have this time of year in a different appeal, not necessarily commercial but residential. You might have an appeal that says, my value went up. We see that you just purchased this property for X, and they go, well, I didn't pay X, I paid Y. Okay, well, what's that number Y? Well, I'm not going to tell you what Y is. Okay, well then, if you're not going to tell me your actuals, then I'm going to use the rest of the market to compare you to. And that's what's going on from the commercial standpoint too. It's just an income approach rather than a sales comparison approach methodology. Yes, sir.
I read that article in the paper, and clearly I'm not objective, but I thought it came across as a very objective, fair response from the ACAD. I was pleased with what I read.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Because I wanted to be, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and Mike asked really good questions. Eamon will let you know. Eamon is my commercial property appraiser. He's helped. In fact, he's been the chief operator of developing all of these income models. And so he was in that conversation, both conversations, to answer any questions that both the chamber had and during the press release for Mike Probst. So
I think you guys came across very well.
Yeah, of any newspaper interview and subsequent article I've ever been a part of, that was the most fair. It's the best result I could have hoped for.
yeah, it was good. Yeah, and I'm thankful for the discourse. I'm thankful for the conversations. And if you get stopped in the community, please tell those individuals that have properties that are commercial property or any kind of property. If you have a question, first of all, you can't answer it. You as the board cannot answer it. You can't even talk about it. Secondly, point them to us. Tell them to come talk to us. Tell them to appeal before the deadline, because once that deadline is coming past, they've not taken hold of their rights and remedies at that point. They would have let them go. So have them have conversations with us because we want that information. That's the reason there's a rights and remedies process. If they don't agree with us on the way we do an income methodology, or that we're even doing an income methodology, they could say, you should be doing it by cost or whatever. The sky's blue, water's wet, whatever their argument is, that's all fine and good. Even if we don't agree, there's a process. They come into the appraisal review board. They get to hear all of their evidence. They get to hear all of our evidence. And even if they don't agree with that process, there's both arbitration and suit. And I know all of those are difficult for property owners to go through. I mean, I understand it. We're on our end. We're going to try to provide the best, most accurate appraisals we can for every property that comes in question.
Well, I think that, you kind of knew that was going to come up with the change in focus. I think y'all handled it well, and I think it came out pretty well. And if you get one like that, that's pretty good. And I think you got the right answers. Tell them to come in and present the stuff and talk. Some will be happy and some will not. But I think y'all did a good job on that.
Thank you, sir.
I think we've come to the end of our agenda, folks. There's nothing else noticed. This could be close to a new world's record. Okay. We'll want to have another meeting next quarter, Mike.
Yes. I'll hit you up before that happens and put down some dates, and I will have my financials ready at that time.
Beforehand.
3 days before.
I will have it 3 days beforehand. Beth? Yes, that's your cue to have me ready.
Oh, okay.
You just got voluntold.
No, that really helps.
If you haven't, I've told you about Beth. Beth came over from Jerry's. I poached her from Jerry's office, and I apologize to Jerry in advance. But Beth has been a great addition to our staff. No, she's the hybrid position that was voted on last year. The new appraiser option. She's our new appraiser, but she's really a hybrid position that's actually learning both the front office staff and the appraisal side. She's going to be one of the most comprehensive employees we have. So she's good. She's sharp.
Done very well.
Yes, she has.
Are we on or off?
We have not adjourned as of yet.
I was waiting for the presidency.
That's all right.
Just waiting for you to say we are adjourned.
We're adjourned.
Okay.
Flip the switch.